Hi, welcome back to library and Lions and Liars. And we're getting into the heart, the thick of things, and the plot is really thickening here. And so, Glow or Gloria, one of the other counselors, is coming up to camp. Oh my gosh, she to say, "Hey, you guys have to evacuate. There's a Hurricane 5 coming this way." And Eric, the one that always wears the sunglasses, he's like, "No, we're gonna stay it through. Plus, we have no car, we have no buses to take the kids out of here. We've got no phone lines. I mean, we've got nothing. We're just gonna hunker down." And Gloria's like, "No." And then they discover that they have two dashes, and one's not the correct dash. So she says, "Okay, everybody, let's go. We're going to drive into the first town, drop this kid off at the counselors or police officers, and then get buses, and we're going to evacuate the camp." So, chapter 16, The Rock. "Are you ready to go?" Glow was asking Frederick 10 minutes later. She, Benjamin, and Frederick stood outside Eric's cabin. The counselors had decided that Glow, three other counselors, and Frederick were going to squeeze into her truck and drive to the nearest town. Glow would take Frederick to the police station and hand him over to them so they could contact his family. And then she was going to find three school buses. I'll steal them if I have to. That didn't have sand in their tanks or gashes in their tires, and have the counselors drive them back to camp, load up the boys, and drive west like the Fast and the Furious, only in school buses instead of sports cars. Hmm. Frederick looked around camp. Obviously, he didn't want to be in the camp with the hurricane hit, but he felt like he wasn't done here. He at least needed to say goodbye to the guys in his group. The morning was sunny, and a light breeze was beginning to stir. It didn't look like there was a hurricane coming. "We're hitting the road in less than 5 minutes." Glow started walking off in the direction of a counselor who was crossing the camp. "So you'd better pack up and have your stuff in that truck." She pointed at the big truck that she'd almost run Frederick over with, "in less than 3 minutes." "Less than three," Frederick repeated blankly. "Minutes." Glow's eyes bugged out. "3 minutes." "Okay," Frederick said, trying to think of what stuff he needed to get to take home. Mr. Mincy's boat was down by the river under the willow where Frederick had left it. Maybe he could come back and show Mr. Mincy where it was. Antbite had taken his bag of lost and found stuff, so he couldn't pack that. The only other thing he had was his dirty shirt he had swapped for the red jersey. He had left the shirt on the floor by his bed. "Antbite!" Frederick exclaimed, realizing. He'd spun around to Benjamin, who was standing at his shoulder, looking lost. "Benjamin, Antbite's gone. He went away before Glow got here." "Went away? Where?" Benjamin asked. "I don't know," Frederick said. "I mean, maybe he might have, he might think that he's going on a cruise," he said. Was Antbite really trying to go to Point Verde Shoals, or had he just run away for a little while? Frederick didn't know. "Okay," Benjamin said. He hitched up his shorts. "A cruise," he said, disbelief bleeding into his voice. "The point is he's gone," Frederick said. "Don't worry," Benjamin said. "We'll find Antbite and evacuate him too." He was really mad, Frederick pressed, trying to make Benjamin understand the seriousness of the situation. "And he doesn't know about the hurricane." "Dash, relax." Benjamin put a hand on Frederick's shoulder. "Me and the other counselors are trained professionals." Frederick didn't correct Benjamin about using the wrong name. Instead, he looked at Benjamin. Really looked at him. His earnest, disappointed face. His neat counselor's uniform and gigantic shorts. His name tag, which had twirled around to face backward again, showing the number 13. Benjamin gave Frederick a reassuring smile. Then a bird flew over, and a watery green turd landed on the shoulder of Benjamin's blue polo. It slid down the fabric, and all of Frederick's hope for saving Antbite seemed to slide with it. "Oh my goodness gracious," Benjamin said, twisting his head and pulling on the sleeve of his shirt so he could inspect the bird poop. Frederick grabbed the top of his head and looked around, trying to come up with an idea for what to do. Then he spotted Specs, Nosebleed, and the professor walking out of the Group 13's cabin in their swim trunks. "I'll be right back," Frederick said to Benjamin as he ran over to the boys. He stopped right in front of them. The professor stepped around him and kept walking. "Wait," Frederick said, reaching for the professor's arm. just as Specs grabbed the front of his jersey and shoved him back several steps. Get out of our camp. Specs' nose was an inch from Frederick's. There's a hurricane, Frederick said, cringing back from Specs' breath and prying the other boy's fingers off his shirt. Get out of our camp, Specs said again. You don't belong here. You're not part of our group, understand? He stepped sideways so that he was between Frederick and Nosebleed and the professor, like he was protecting them from having to come face to face with Frederick. That was ridiculous. Frederick wasn't dangerous. He was one of them. Come on, the professor said to Specs. Let's go swimming. There's a hurricane, Frederick said. It's called Hernando, and it's coming this way, and it's so bad that Sci-Fi Channel's going to make a movie about it. Specs didn't back down. I haven't heard of any hurricane, he said. That's because you're so self-involved. You don't care about the world around you, Frederick said automatically. Specs looked startled for a second, like he was trying to figure out what Frederick meant, and then his nostrils flared. You get out of here, Specs said, tilting his head back so he could squint down his nose at Frederick. Because the next time I see you, I'm going to snap your glasses. I don't wear glasses, Frederick said. Specs lifted a finger, backing away. Exactly, he said, and turned around. The professor shrugged at Frederick and then followed Specs. Just wish you hadn't lied to us, Nosebleed said. I didn't mean to lie, Frederick said, and I'm worried about Antbite. Nosebleed started for the river, his plasticky swim trunks shrishing as he walked. Frederick kicked the ground in frustration. Antbite's in trouble. There's a hurricane, he yelled as they walked away from him. He realized it was the second time that morning he had found himself shouting at their backs. All campers, report to the main building for an emergency meeting, a counselor shouted into the megaphone. All campers, report to the main building. See? Frederick said, calling after them. See? Specs and the others stopped and exchanged looks. The professor glanced back at Frederick. Then all three of them turned and headed toward the main building, stepping wide around Frederick as they went. What about Antbite? He called. This wasn't right. This wasn't fair. It wasn't like Frederick was asking him to do anything unreasonable. He wasn't asking them to forgive him or be his friend or to be friends with him again. He was asking them to help him figure out how to save Antbite, who was supposed to still be their friend. This wasn't Frederick's job. It wasn't his responsibility. This wasn't even a job he could do. This was a job for somebody like The Rock or something, not Frederick. Only The Rock wasn't coming. And sure, there was a whole spectrum of people who were between the almighty Rock and Frederick the Flea, but none of those people were going to help. Frederick walked around in a tight circle, winding himself up. Fine, he said to himself. Fine. It's all fine. He stopped walking in circles and started toward the field where they had played dodgeball, in the direction Antbite had gone in earlier. I'll just go get Antbite. Dash! Benjamin yelled. Where are you going? Tell Glow I'm coming, Frederick shouted over his shoulder, starting to run. I'll be right back. Oi. So, Frederick is going after Antbite because nobody will listen to him. And he feels that Antbite is in trouble. Or is going to be in trouble. It's going to get caught in the eye of the hurricane, the eye of the storm. So I'm worried. Will Frederick make it back okay? Will the kids ever forgive him? Will they be friends? Oy. Stay tuned for next week, The Kudo, Chapter 17. Thank you for reading with me. Have a great week.